Welcome aboard. Justin here from Swift, Silent, Deadly. Today we're going to take a look at a qualification course of fire that is near and dear to my heart. This is the MEU M4A1 qualification course of fire. So this is the course of fire that you're required to pass as a force reconnaissance man in a direct action platoon to continue to go hot in the house, to be qualified to pass the dynamic assault course. This is a pretty important qualification when I was in the military. When we went into the CQB package, you had to pass this. This was kind of the culminating event, as being able to pass this. That enabled you to go hot in the house on bullet traps, which you're shooting in close proximity to team members and that sort of thing. So it's important that you be able to hit a target with some degree of precision while on the move, low probability targets, that sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff mixed into this drill. This course of fire is broken down into two halves. The first half is fired on one target. The second half is fired on two targets. So you want to load your magazines with 26 rounds. You want to put that magazine in the gun. You want a second magazine of 24 rounds ready to go. Even though you only fire 24 in the first relay and 26 in the second, there's a reason to set it up this way. Targets. I used IDPA silhouettes. In the military, we used echo silhouettes, which were slightly more amorphous shapes, and they had an 8-inch circle inscribed on the chest, and then a 3x5 card, I believe, a 3x5 brain box in the head rather than the circle. However, IDPA silhouettes, as you know, are what I have readily on hand, so that's what I chose to use for this series of drills, were IDPA silhouettes. So let's talk a little bit about equipment really quickly. So I used my BCM Recce 14 carbine. It's a 14.5 inch carbine with a pinned and welded muzzle device, sporting a Surefire SOCOM Mini suppressor, EOTech optic, a mod light, and that's it. This pretty close to what I carried in the military. I carried M4A1 carbine, albeit with a much shorter rail. It had a PEC 2 on it. Still an EOTech. I don't think it's quite the latest and greatest EOTech like I have now, but very similar setup to what and a Knight's Armament suppressor rather than a Surefire. So very similar to my setup in the military. I'm rocking about the same thing I had, functionally equivalent. Let's go ahead and get into the course of the fire. So stage one, these first 24 rounds begin in stage one. We're firing on one single target. Let me back up just a little bit. I came out to the range. I gave myself a 20 round warm-up. 20 rounds of warm-up seemed fair since I've not shot really a rifle much to speak of in the last couple of years, really. When I was in a force reconnaissance platoon in our shooting package, pre-shoots, all that, you would shoot for 2 solid weeks and then shoot this drill for Qual. So there's nothing dictates this drill has to be shot cold. So stage one at the 50-yard line, 50-yard line, and I do sport a 5200 yard zero on my gun. So this thing should be zeroed for the 50-yard line. At the 50, we're going to fire 2 rounds standing, drop to a kneeling, fire 2 more rounds, drop to the prone and fire 2 rounds. So 2 standing, 2 kneeling, 2 prone in a time limit of 10 seconds. I was able to do this in 9.83 seconds. Good use of the time. I used just about every bit of time that I had, and I believe I only dropped 1 on this stage. The next one, a little bit of a, you better have your big boy pants on. And I want to talk about equipment just a little bit. So when you shoot this in a platoon, you're not slick like I am. You're not comfortable like I am. You're wearing a vest, you're wearing your helmet, you're wearing all your gear. I chose to wear what I typically wear on a day-to-day basis. I put on some EDU pants because I knew I'd be in the prone. I knew I'd be kneeling a lot, but I wore what I typically wear on a day-to-day basis. This stage of fire is on the buzzer, sprint from the 50 down to the 25, shoot a pair standing and a pair kneeling in 11 seconds. I was able to do this in 10.68 seconds. You don't get a whole lot closer than that without going over. So again, I kind of give myself a pat on the back for my use of the time there. So between these first 2 relays, that's 10 rounds total. I've got 1 outside of the 8-inch circle, and the 8-inch circle is what I'm counting as the scoring zone. Anything outside of the 8, those are all worth 2 points. Anything outside of the 8-inch circle but still on the silhouette is 1 point. Anything off the silhouette, obviously, is a big fat goose egg. So let's go ahead and walk back down to the 25-yard line. So our next drill at the 25-yard line is a single brain shot. On the buzzer, 1 to the head in a time limit of 2 seconds. I was able to do this in 1.24 seconds, but was I really? My shot was off to the left, just outside of the line. A little bit bummed about that, a little bit mad at myself. On a person, you know, if I'm not inside that 4-inch circle, if I'm here, I think a rifle bullet's still probably going to be pretty darn effective. But I do want to meet the spirit of the drill, so I'm going to count that as a second point down. So it's 2 points down if you're keeping score. Next up, at the 25-yard line, we're actually moving. There is a big emphasis on shooting on the move. So from the 25 to the 15, we have 5 seconds to put a pair on that body. I managed to do that in 2.07 seconds. So I'm happy with that. That is a passing time. Let's go ahead and move down to the 15. So procedural error on my part. From the 15-yard line, standing, fire a pair to the body in a time limit of 2 seconds. I fired this in 1.71 seconds. Unfortunately, I forgot to record it. So if you want to dock me those 2 rounds, that would be fair. Okay, next up, moving from the 15 to the 10, we are firing a failure drill. A failure drill, to the uninitiated, is 2 rounds to the body, 1 round to the brain in a time limit of 4 seconds. So it's 3 total rounds, 4 seconds, moving between the 15 and the 10. I managed to pull this off in 2.84 seconds. Let's talk about those moving stages really, really quickly. So the way I do these, I have a random delay on my shot timer. So I hit the button and I start moving. At some point, when that buzzer goes, that's when I'm going to snap the rifle up and engage the target with the prescribed number of rounds. The way we did this back in the day is we would have an SOTG instructor say move, and then they would hit the buzzer with a no delay whenever we were where they wanted us to be. And at that point, we would begin shooting. So working alone at the range, this is how I have to do it. So next up, 10 to the 5, another failure drill on the move between the 10-yard line and the 5-yard line. This time we have 3.5 seconds to pull off that failure drill between the 10 and the 5. I managed to do that in 2.21 seconds. I'm very, very happy with that time. That's a solid time. Finally, to end this stage, shooting on the move from the 7 to the 3, we're going to fire another failure drill, this time in a time limit of 3 seconds, 2 to the body, 1 head in 3 seconds. I managed to do this in 1.84 seconds. Now at this point, you're supposed to take a look at the target and count the rounds. You should have 24 rounds on that target. So that should be 24 rounds in that 8-inch circle and 4 rounds in that head box, hopefully all in the appropriate scoring area. So I'm down 3 total. All my rounds are accounted for, but I am down 3 points total on this drill. So at this point, we're going to reset. We're going to move back to the 50-yard line. There should be 2 rounds in the gun, 1 in the chamber, 1 in the magazine, and we're going to start stage 2. On stage 2, every single stage of fire is fired on 2 targets. So they're all addressed with an equal number of rounds. So if you're supposed to fire 2 rounds on the first target, you transition over to the second one and address it with 2 more rounds. Our first stage of fire is at the 50-yard line. We're going to fire 2 rounds to the body, conduct an emergency reload, and 2 rounds to the body on the second target. We are given a time limit of 11 seconds to make that happen. I did that in 8.79 seconds. Good to go. All right, now let's move down to the 25-yard line. So at the 25-yard line, we're shooting on the move from the 25 to the 15. It's a pair on each body, so 2 on the first target, 2 on the second target. We're given a time limit of 6 seconds to do that, and I managed to do that in 5.03 seconds, a passing time. All right, next up, at the 15-yard line, we have a stationary stage. This is pair to each body in 3.5 seconds. So 2 shots on the first target, transition, 2 shots on the second target, 3.5 seconds. I managed to do this in 2.67 seconds. That is one of the few stationary drills. There is a huge emphasis in moving in this MUSOC qual. And the next drill is a perfect demonstrator of that. We are moving from the 15 to the 10, firing a pair on each body. We are given a time limit of 4 seconds to do this. I shot this one in 2.76 seconds. the reverse of the last one, 276, 267. Now we'll talk about accuracy in a minute, but my shooting on the move accuracy on target 1, maybe not exactly where I would like for it to be. All right, next up, we have another stationary drill at the 10-yard line. We're going to fire a pair on each body. We have a time limit of 3 seconds. I made this happen in 2.42 seconds. These stationary stages seem almost ridiculously easy by comparison to these moving stages once you really get used to these moving stages. And then finally, we wrap this thing up with a failure drill on the move from the 10 to the 3-yard line. So between the 10 and the 3-yard line, I'm going to start moving. My buzzer's going to go off somewhere between the 10 and the 3. I'm going to fire 2 rounds to one body, 2 rounds to target 1, 2 rounds to target 2, transition up to the head on target 2, fire a headshot, and then back to a headshot on target 1. I'm given a time limit of 5 seconds to do that. I managed to do this in 3.11 seconds. I'm very happy to say that I was not over time on a single drill. Now, let's go down and take a look at these targets. I'll let Range Justin talk to you about the overall score. All right, so I started with a down 3 coming off the last relay. So, man, this first target, this is piss poor. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm down 6, 7, 8, 9. And down 10. The second target actually looks great. Not sure why I had such trouble with the first one, but that's a 90%. Okay, so I shot a 90% on this. That's not a great score. I'm not thrilled with that. However, that is definitely passing. That would have definitely paid the rent back in the day, kept me in the platoon, let me progress on in the training, whatever the case may be. Nowadays, I would frankly like to score a little bit better than that. The fact is, though, I've not just been through a 2-week pre-shoot and I'm shooting this, day 1 of the CQB package to see where I stand. I have, maybe fired 1,000 rounds of rifle in the last year, if that. So I don't have a ton of training time on the rifle recently. So I'm reasonably happy with being able to pull out a 90 on this drill. Really quickly, I want to point out a couple caveats on this qualification course of fire that you may not know. Should you run out of ammunition, maybe you didn't load your ammunition or load your magazines correctly, and that happens. Maybe you have a malfunction. If for whatever reason you experience a stoppage in fire during a drill, there are only 2 ways that you get an alibi and you're allowed to reshoot that drill. So if you're 15 yards or further distant from the target and this happens, you need to conduct the appropriate malfunction clearance, get back in the fight, and fire whatever number of rounds are left in that drill. You will be given an alibi and be allowed to reshoot that. If you're at the 15-yard line and in and experience a stoppage in fire, the prescribed course of action is to transition to the pistol, shoot the appropriate drill with the pistol. Accuracy does count, and that is the only way that you receive an alibi for that round. If you just stop what you're doing, raise your hand, all those rounds are just anything that's not on the paper are missed points. So those are 2 points apiece out of a total 100. Guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time. This was a fun little trip down memory lane. It was interesting to see what I've got after not having shot this drill in probably 15, 16, 17 years. I appreciate you watching. If you're a patron, thank you so much for your support. It means the world. If you're not, man, your support goes so far to help me pay for URLs, for web hosting, for ammunition to shoot these drills, for all the other hidden costs that go into operating and maintaining a website. If you're not, $5 a month, $10 a month, a one-time donation of $1,000 goes a tremendous way in helping keep this content coming. Thank you for your support, guys. I sincerely appreciate it. Until next time, be dangerous.